Hello, Mr. Miller here. Second instructional video for the September 29th debate tournament here at Rock Creek High School. Thanks again for judging. And this video is going to get a little bit more in depth on some of the arguments that you're going to hear and what it is that you should be looking for when you judge. First of all, we'll just go through the stock issues in order. The first one's topicality, and the resolution is the United States federal government should substantially reduce its restrictions on legal immigration to the United States. So the affirmative team's going to get up and they're going to, hey, here's what we suggest that we should do. And the first one they're going to mention is some sort of harm, and it's a really bad harm. And so the most common one is the economy. Most of the cases this year are turning out to be about the economy, increasing immigration to somehow help the U.S. economy have more workers, because we're short on workers. And the inherency right now is Trump, and his policies are scaring people away, keeping people away. The plan, however, whichever, there's like 185 different visas. So what's happening is that each pair picks their own little visa they want to increase, and then they increase it. And then solvency, by letting in high-skilled workers, by letting in ag workers, you help the economy. And then we have advantages from that. More economy means more taxes, which means more money, that kind of thing. You know, on the negative side, they're going to get up and probably argue topicality. And the first one is on substantially, because as our argument goes, if there's 185 visas and you're only changing one, that's not really substantial, right? That's a little itty-bitty thing. And so that's the argument. And then the affirmative team's going to say, oh, but it's one visa, but it's a very important visa, right? So we're changing something important. And that's what they're going to argue. So you got to determine that in your own head, whether you believe one side or the other. It's up to you. One of the issues, though, is in topicality, you need to have a definition. You got to have four things: definition, violation, standard, voters. And some schools, some kids, especially when they're starting out in debate, fail. They have all four parts. So you kind of need to have all four parts. And if you don't really have a topicality attack. It's kind of like, did he catch the ball? Well, the ball bounced on the ground. Well, it's not really a catch then, is it? And so in debate, it's like, did you have all four parts? No. Well, then you really didn't have a topicality attack, and it doesn't really count. The second argument that negative is going to bring up is probably a disadvantage, a DA they'll call it. And this is somehow hurting, the plan will hurt. You know, if you bring in workers, then it's going to hurt American workers. It's going to bring down wages. It'll be unemployment, competition. That's a common DA. Another common DA is it's going to hurt our schools, because you have all these immigrants bringing all these kids in. It's going to overwhelm the schools, and they'll be spending all their money on English as a second language teachers instead of increasing teacher pay or whatever. Another DA is it hurts the economy or environment. You bring in more people. The carbon footprint of a United States person is equal to 19 people in Central America. So every person you bring in from Central America, you're increasing their carbon footprint by 19 if they end up behaving like the typical American and getting a car and driving everywhere and that kind of thing. Using a lot of electricity. So now they also might run a counter plan. And what a counter plan is the negative says, okay, we agree there is a problem, but we think our way of fixing it is better than your way of fixing it, because our way of fixing it avoids this nasty DA, this disadvantage, okay, and we still get the advantage. So it fixes the problem, but it does it in a better way. And so if the negative runs a counter plan, some of the couple of terms you need to be listening for and pay attention to are, number one, is it competitive? Meaning you either have to choose the affirmative plan or the counter plan. You can't do both. If you can do both, and the affirmative team gets up and says, you can do both, then the affirmative team wins that, okay? But if it's an either or situation, then that goes to the negative. Now, the other thing is the net benefit. You need some sort of net benefit. In other words, the DA that applies to the affirmative case doesn't apply to the counterplan. Okay? So that's, and counterplans are pretty common this year, actually, so you'd be listening for those. And then they'll also attack on case. They might attack harm, saying, hey, there's really there's no shortage of STEM workers like they claim there is. Or they'll say the economy's doing fine now, we don't need to rev it up even more. Or they'll say the plan doesn't actually fix. Here's an issue you might want to listen for is currently the numbers that we have for immigration policy, how many immigrants are we going to let in, are really pretty arbitrary. It's like, how'd you come up with that number? And it's not based on what the United States needs. It's just, hey, this is arbitrary. Like we had a case we looked at today where they doubled the number of H-1 visas. They just doubled it, okay, from 65,000 to 130,000 a year. And the question is, well, is that what the U.S. needs? Maybe we'll need more, maybe we'll need less. Traditionally, the United States has needed, over the past several years, has needed well over 200,000. So does the affirmative case have solvency if they're going from 65,000 to 130 when the applications, the need has shown to be over 200,000? And so what a good negative team will point out is, look, you increased it, but you didn't increase it enough, so you really can't claim all those wonderful advantages that you say your plan's going to do because you're not increasing enough. And then on the flip side, another bad thing about that solvency is that, well, what happens if that number goes below 130,000? Now you're letting in too many workers and you're going to have wages hurt because you got too many workers going around. And so that arbitrary number is something that a good negative team will go, nah, no. Your number needs to be tied to the economy. What the economy needs is the number you're letting in. And if you're just picking a random number, you're not really solving the problem. In fact, you could be making it worse. So that's a good negative attack on solvency. Generally, a lot of times, affirmative teams will exaggerate the benefits, the advantages they get from their plan. They'll say, we're going to fix this and we'll get all these wonderful things. They'll exaggerate. And you'll listen for that, and a good neg team will point that out. On the flip side, a neg team on their DAs will say, oh, the world will collapse if you do this. Like a lot of schools will run nuke war, you know, and even like when the topic was schools, they would argue, oh, if you get, you know, if you insist on kids wearing school uniforms, you'll end with a nuclear war. And it's like, yeah, really? So don't be afraid to go, yeah, no, we're not going to have a nuke war if we let in 60,000 more people. Ain't going to happen. Or you're not going to save the planet if you just let in 10,000 more people. So look for exaggerations, and a good negative team will point those out, or a good AF team will point those out. So that's all I got for today. If you got any questions, text me, or after a round, if you're judging and you got questions, text me on that too. And I'll see you bright and early Saturday morning. Remember, 20 minutes before your round, don't show up at 8, because we'll be freaking out trying to find substitutes for you. And so please get here early and have a pancake or something for breakfast. Bagel. I think we got bagels. And biscuits and gravy, I think, too. Anyway, see you soon.